paint the plan such that there's a slight angle in the north and south facades, so that as you see the building from around the city, it presents a dynamic shape, improves views for the units looking past the buildings, and create a really memorable profile in the skyline. The building's identity is one that's stepping. It's a tapering building that steps up towards the top. So as you move higher up in the building, you get these, what we think will be quite special outdoor terraces for these units. This is a roof plan looking at the overall site. Shown in green are proposed vegetated roofs closest to the street level. And then you can see that modular roofscape where at increments of 12 feet, bays drop off to create this, what we think will be gently and beautifully profiled towers on the skyline. Here you can see a few of those elevations. One of the things that we think is quite special for this design, and this design is unique in the world. There are not buildings that look like this. Is to have a beautiful cascade of terraces that almost crescendo towards the top. And so it is almost as if the tower, rather than an extrusion capped at the roof, is gently stepping back from the street up to the skyline. One of the things that we like about that is that from the lake, from the river, from any part of the city, the experience of these buildings for the average Chicagoan will be different no matter where you're standing. Excellent. Here are two elevations, one from the east and from the west. We call the east elevation the lake elevation and the west the city. The buildings are slightly askew. They're treated as siblings rather than twins. And they are intended to act basically in unison. There's a harmony between them. The terraces are subtly misaligned. The facades are looking past one another. And they create this, we think and hope, really memorable profile on the city skyline. Here's a section that demonstrates the way that it works. The core continues up to the middle, and that the terraces basically begin roughly a third of the building upward. One of the central premises of the design is an idea about urban living. And we asked ourselves, wouldn't it be amazing, would it be cool if you could have robust outdoor spaces, porches, essentially, high up in towers. And so this terrace, each tower has more than 20 of these, are 12 feet deep and create a lot of the iconic quality of the design. I'm going to talk a little bit now about the facade detailing and the expression of the building. The building is inspired by what we think is a historically important architectural element found through many of the buildings in Chicago, the Chicago Bay window. And we take these, what we think will be very special views, and we make them more special by having a subtle bay. It creates an intermediate scale and fabric and visual interest on the facade, and creates a rippling that when light passes over the day will create a different play of light on that facade, which we think will be quite pleasant. The east and west facades are intentionally straightened flat, so that the reading of the bay window almost reads like these sheets that are laminated together that gently fall off as the building tapers towards the sky. The podium and the facade that touches the ground is a mix of rich materials, including masonry, metal trim, artisanal light fixtures that make you feel like it's almost part of the landscape. It's intentionally designed to be integral with the public realm. One major and important feature of the design is the treatment of Lakeshore Drive. And so we're proposing a barrier basically for acoustic, safety, and visual reasons to improve the public realm. The design is inspired and meant to be compatible and complement the bridge houses that are on the north and south sides of the Chicago River. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see what that might look like. So we're standing right now on the Riverwalk, or what will be the culmination of the Riverwalk. leading towards what will be DuSable Park. This barrier helps for a number of reasons. Acoustically, it's going to make the Riverwalk much more comfortable. It will, in the wintertime, it's a solid backup. It will prevent ice and debris from Lakeshore Drive falling off onto pedestrians. And the design is such that it's meant to be compatible with, the beautiful historic bridge structures. So the types of stone and coloration that you see in those, as well as clear signage and a decorative architectural screen directly above that first, quarter of the barrier, as a way to break down human scale and with clarity demonstrate wayfinding to DuSable Park. I'm going to talk a little bit now about transportation, traffic, parking. This was a major issue for the project over the last few years. In conversations with the community, one of the major concerns was traffic. And so, as Rich mentioned, Peter Lemon from Kimley Horn is here to answer questions that might be, above, what I'm able to do. But I want to walk kind of at a basic level some of the strategies that we have here for transportation, traffic, and parking. Next slide. First and foremost, we've clarified, simplified, and we think made better the pedestrian circulation for the community. The Ogden Slip and Riverwalk are connected via a north-south pedestrian axis just west of the towers, with a green buffer between both the proposed buildings and the existing townhomes. And then a clear line of sight, almost a straight shot from the Riverwalk through DuSable Park to improve safety, help with wayfinding, and establish clear lines of movement. The vehicular circulation is intentionally separated between Lakeshore Drive and Water Street. There is no ability for a vehicle to pass from one drop-off to the other to prevent through traffic, so as to keep traffic within the Water Street and Streeterville neighborhood low. And so accessing the building from Lakeshore Drive or from Water Street, both sides would have access to basement parking, and each side almost discreetly allows for those drop-offs to happen. Next slide. All servicing would be done from Lakeshore Drive, so the loading docks are biased to the east of the site, closest to Lakeshore, so that the trucks and deliveries that will happen with this development are not going to use Water Street or the Streeterville roads. The idea for rideshare and taxis is to prioritize access from Lakeshore Drive, from that east edge, as a way basically to keep the rideshare population down on Water Street. Next slide. And in the service basically of doing a thorough study for traffic recommendations, our team has put together a comprehensive traffic impact study. One of the big takeaways from this study, simply by removing the hotel and the associated programs, the restaurant, we've seen what we anticipate to be a 60 to 78% reduction in rideshare and taxi use simply by making that move. And Peter, I'm sure, can talk more about that if questions. Next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit now about the urban design for the project and the impacts that it will have to our skyline and this important site. The last 15, 20 years of the site are very well known. My guess is it's also well known, but perhaps less so, how important this site is to our city's history. It's adjacent to DuSable's homestead. This is where our city was founded, and it's where the river meets the lake. And so, as an almost celebration and marking of that, a central idea of the design is to create a gateway, almost marking the spot of our city's founding. And as sibling towers, that gateway is kind of clearly expressed almost from any vantage. Another major consideration for the design was its response to the immediate skyline. You'll notice that if you look at the buildings adjacent to it, the roofscapes kind of terminate at a certain height. And so the thought is that the buildings that we're proposing extend up to that roof height, and then once they kind of meet that tree line, so to speak, the terraces step back incrementally to create what we think will be that elegant profile. Next slide. From the public realms point of view, there are a few, significant design moves that we think will better the environment. So number one, it will be the culmination of the Riverwalk leading to DuSable Park. It will be well landscaped with seating areas, lush vegetation, and what we hope will be beautiful design. I mentioned active uses along the southern edge of the Phase 2 building with service on the east and an extension of Water Street that ends on access with that art and landscape feature shown on the page. Next slide. The design guidelines for the Riverwalk are being observed and let's call it exceeded in many respects to allow for ample sunlight to fall down on pedestrians, to make sure that this experience as you move to DuSable Park is a pleasant one for Chicagoans and visitors. Next slide. For the building materials of the site, I mentioned a little bit earlier about the Chicago Bay windows. We're proposing a high-performance facade, mindful of the world that we live in and how important energy is to our future. And so to reduce loads, high-performance glass, more solidity in the facade, and a design of the solid elements that kind of speak to our history of rich ornamental facades rooted in an expression of kind of our agrarian past, but done in a contemporary way. Here we propose almost a rippling solid element reminiscent of the lake waves. Next slide. For the widths of our pedestrian path leading to DuSable Park, the kind of minimum recommendation of the Riverwalk is about 10 feet. We're about doubling that for most of the run. We've straightened it out, and so that at the western edge upon arrival into what will be the new development, you can literally see all the way to DuSable Park. And we're providing the required seating and trash areas as recommended by the design guidelines. Lighting is very important, particularly in the underpass leading to DuSable Park, and so it will be very well lit with close spacing of light fixtures and abundant landscape such that we're meeting the design guidelines for the Riverwalk with tree planting. In terms of sustainability, we're targeting LEED Silver with EV charging stations and an 80% waste diversion. Not to mention a number of, let's call them architectural elements that are mindful of sustainability. An east-west orientation for solar glare, shaping of the building to improve pedestrian comfort. They're spaced such that we are confident with very detailed computational fluid dynamic studies that the pedestrian comfort from wind will be really comfortable at the street. We also think that the landscape design, no vehicular path along the river are compliant with stormwater management ordinances by the city. And we laud the city's recent passing of the ordinance for bird-friendly design. So for this building, it's mostly about glass. And so we're proposing non-mirrored glass, corners that have solid elements marking the corner to prevent fly-through hazards, and glass railings that will be treated to prevent accidental bird strike. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to Rich.
Thank you, Ryan, very much. Again, for the record, Rich Clowder, DLA Piper. I wanted to talk briefly about this slide and then about some of the public benefits associated with the project. As Emily noted at the outset, Plan Development 368 was established 35 years ago, and since then, Subarea E3, which is our subarea, was amended first in 2007, and now today, it then authorized 1,200 units and a 25 FAR, and today the request is to reduce the FAR from 25 to 15.92 and to create a maximum number of units allowed of 1,100. To achieve the 15.92 FAR, the developer will pay nearly $4 million into the fund which supports the construction of affordable units, and especially important these days, rental assistance and relief programs for low-income tenants in the city. Related's commitment to affordable housing throughout the city is very laudable. They've built or rehabbed over 10,000 affordable units in the Midwest, including city projects at Parkway Gardens on the south side, Roosevelt Square on the near west side, Marshall Field Apartments in Old Town, and Lathrop Homes most recently on the north side. Next slide, please. The community benefits here are significant and numerous. First, Related will make a $10 million donation to the Park District and a commitment to build DuSable Park. The completion of Founders Way creates a landscape riverfront walkway that extends to DuSable Park and then to the Navy Pier flyover. Over 4.5 acres of public green space will be created to allow the public to enjoy it in all seasons. The elimination of the podium, as mentioned, will improve light and air for the neighborhood. Safety and security is addressed through extensive cameras and lighting. An estimated 2,650 jobs will be created with a focus on community hiring to benefit local residents. And not on this slide, but we recently calculated that over $70 million in property taxes will be generated over 10 years by this extraordinary project. Next slide, please. This project is expected to cost approximately $1 billion, and as I mentioned, over 2,600 temporary construction jobs will be created along with approximately 50 permanent jobs. The developer's extensive track record should give this body comfort that it will achieve the goal of participation of at least 26% from minority-owned firms, at least 6% from women-owned firms, and 50% hiring of city residents. And the workforce will be representative of the diversity of our great city. Next slide. Related's commitment to community diversity and inclusion is pioneering, and they've done it whether they've been asked to or not. Don Bernanke is the industry leader in outreach to underrepresented minority and women-owned firms. More than $250 million in contracts have been let to MBE, WB, DBE firms in Related's history. Related has achieved these results for over 30 years because of consistent and collaborative partnerships with local leaders and consultants. Next slide, please, Emily. As mentioned, DLA, or Related Midwest, has a proven track record of meeting and exceeding project requirements. Their commitment to the greater community ecosystem includes, but is not limited to, the following. Related is awarded 3 prime general contractor contracts to MBE contractors. First at Marshall Field Garden Apartment Homes, then at Taylor Street Library Apartments, and most recently at Lathrop Homes. Related has hired over 450 community residents across 25 projects. They've provided 15 small business startups as first opportunity. They've provided a free small business mentorship program for 25 small business owners across Chicago. Related connects small businesses with international opportunities for minority participation in distributorship as well. They're a co-founder of Hire 360 Chicago. They're a co-leader of the Small Business Loan Fund that provides a vehicle for small business owners to obtain low-interest loans. Related established the first of its kind Community Inclusion Council to hold themselves accountable and to meet standards to which they commit. Next slide. Related Midwest understands that diverse, equitable participation and sustainable opportunities are dependent on integrated programs, resources, partners, and initiatives working together. Through their investment in workforce development, local and small business development, and supply chain investments, Related's mission is threefold: create a diverse and inclusive workforce, create and sustain new standards for inclusion, and create sustainable careers and opportunities while meeting inclusion standards and investing in the community supply chain. Next slide, please. This slide is a little bit hard to see, but it's critically important in our view. The dots on this map show the numerous and diverse points of connection Related has made in forging community partnerships and enabling and launching women and minority-owned startups and mentorships. You can see that across the city, particularly in South and West Side neighborhoods, Related Midwest has been a difference maker and change agent in bringing diversity and inclusion to the construction trades and small businesses. Finally, to return to the zoning and planning aspects of the project, and Emily, please advance to the next slide. This application is also consistent with the principles and guidelines of the Lakefront Protection Ordinance, especially as relates to the creation of additional and publicly accessible open space and the commitment to fulfilling the 35-year-old dream that was conceived to build DuSable Park. Next slide. And you can advance beyond that, Emily, and I will now turn the presentation back over to you to close.
Thank you. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the materials submitted by the applicant and has concluded that the proposal would be appropriate for the following reasons. The project promotes safe and efficient circulation of pedestrians, cyclists, and motor vehicles. The proposal includes the completion of the Riverwalk fronting the main branch of the Chicago River and will provide an underpass connection to DuSable Park. The project is designed to promote pedestrian interest, safety, and comfort by providing safe walkways and providing active uses facing the Riverwalk and Water Street. The proposal provides adequate, inviting, usable, and accessible parks, open and recreational areas, and provides substantial landscaping of the open areas. The development includes dog runs and other common open spaces for the residents, and the open space along the Riverwalk includes public seating areas. The proposed development is compatible with the character of this area in terms of uses, density, and scale. Additionally, the proposal is consistent with the purposes of the Lake Michigan and Chicago Lakefront Protection Ordinance and the policies of the Lakefront Plan of Chicago. Please refer to my staff report for further details on this project and the plans presented here today. Based on the foregoing, with conformance to the provisions of the Lake Michigan and the Chicago Lakefront Ordinance and the standards for planned developments, it is the recommendation of the zoning administrator that the application to amend residential business plan development number 368 be approved and forwarded to the City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards as such. Thank you.
As usual, Ms. Thrun, excellent. Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you, Madam President. So related, this is a beautiful building. Can you all hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, this is a beautiful building. You always have some great architects doing your thing. It's very nice. This is not too far from the other building that we just voted on last week with the Tribune property, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, right over there. So I have two questions. One, I know you guys are going to do, I have confidence that you're going to do well with the minority contracting and all of those great things because you do a lot in my ward and you're committed to doing it. So I don't even need to ask that. But what I do need to ask, I was very involved with the statue on Michigan Avenue and Michigan Avenue and the river for DuSable getting put up, right? Myself and a whole bunch of advocates pushed to get that statue put up there. And also they worked real hard on that park. I think it's fantastic that you all are doing a park. I think that's a great thing. There's two concerns that the advocates have in reference to the park. Some folks have been working on this DuSable Park. As you know, he's the founder of Chicago, right? Some folks have been working on this park since Harold Washington for over 30 years, and they still working on it, right? Those folks who was around 30 years ago are still advocating on behalf of this park. And two of the concerns of theirs is, one, who's going to take care of the park? Who's going to maintain the park? Is Related going to maintain the park, or is the park district going to maintain the park? It seemed like the park district should maintain the park. Also, the other thing is that they're concerned about only one entrance to the park being below. You know, it needs to be another. Is it possible to get another entrance to the park from up above? Those are my two questions.
Madam Chair, it's Rich Clowder from DLA Piper again. I wonder if we could promote Kurt Bailey from Related Midwest to answer both of those questions. If he's, I know he's on and I know he's available. If we can.
He's been unmuted. He can speak.
Okay.
But identify yourself for the record, Mr. Bailey.
He got promoted. That's a promotion. Go ahead.
Yes, for the record, I'm Kurt Bailey, and I'm the president of Relay Midwest. And first, I just I want to say thank you to everyone. I want to say thank you to Alderman Riley. Spending some time today, we had some time on this call to think about the long journey we've been on. It was 2012 when we bought the debt on this site, and then went through a foreclosure and then a federal bankruptcy process to get to ownership of it. And we've been working, hand in hand with the alderman, with the city, with the Parks Department, kind of ever since then to get to what we believe is an incredible, really front entrance to the city of Chicago with these two beautiful buildings. And we take seriously the responsibility of building here where the lake meets the river. And a critical piece of that, as you're correctly pointing out, Commissioner Burnett, and it's nice to see you as well. It's been too long, even though it's over the computer. Finishing on the promise that was made 30 years ago by Harold Washington on DuSable is a critical piece for us. And so as we are proud to be able to be a large part in delivering on that promise and building this park, and we are, and you could talk to the Commissioner Kelly about this as well, the Parks Department will end up running and managing this park, which we think is the appropriate end game to it. As for entrances, there actually, Commissioner, will be two entrances to the park. So you will have one entrance from our site, as Ryan was showing, as you come down the Riverwalk. This is the end terminus, and you walk underneath Lakeshore Drive and you get into the park. There will be another entrance and exit off of the bike path, the flyover that's just built now. So the park will rise up as you're looking at the view today, or on the screen looking west. The park will rise up and actually join the bike path, so that if you're on the bike path, either walking or biking, you'll be able to go right into the park that way. So, Commissioner, there will be two entrances. That's a very good point, and something that I think the majority of the people who have worked on this saw as a critical piece to the park, that you'll have an entrance from our site and from the Riverwalk, but also one onto the bike path, which gets you either north or south on the bike path, but as well kind of cascading down, moving east towards Navy Pier as well.
So, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that, and especially appreciate you all paying for it and doing it. I was just wondering, and I misquoted myself when I said 30 years ago. It's been over 30 years.
It's 35.
Yeah, over 30 years. And there's a patriot here in the community. I'd like to connect you with her. I was wondering if you can work with some of the advocates who've been working on this park for years, if they could, talk to you about it, and maybe some things can be incorporated, some of their concerns. What about who's going to take care of the park?
The Parks Department will be the one that ultimately runs and manages the park when we're done building it.
Fantastic. That's great. That's great. So I think that's great. So I have to get you the information, and I see if I can connect you all together. There's a group of people who've been working on this thing for a long time, and I know they're very excited about what you all are doing. They just want to make sure it's not disrespected, and that it's respected and accessible to everyone. That's the main concern. So maybe I can connect you all later on.
We would love that, Commissioner. Yes, that'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Villegas, followed by Commissioner Searle. Alderman Riley, I'm going to go to you in just a bit. Go ahead, Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to first congratulate my colleague, Alderman Riley, for another successful project that looks like it's coming to his ward, and again, altering positively the skyline for the city of Chicago. Then I also would like to say that I'm very familiar with Related as well, and Don Bernanke and everyone over there at Related. And I am confident regarding the MWB participation, but I was wondering if there's going to be some type of a consultant assigned to this project regarding WBE participation as well as workforce. If you didn't see at the zoning committee on Tuesday and then city council on Wednesday, there's a big emphasis by the city council members regarding diversity. I know that this project has a 26.6, but I think that some of the concerns that I've heard from my colleagues is just making sure that everyone from every neighborhood has an opportunity to participate in these projects. So I want to kind of find out if there's what kind of plan is in place to take a look at incorporating folks from all over 77 communities, which will be 78 once you guys are done, but 77 current communities.
Again, Rich Clowder, for the record, I'd like to recognize Don Bernanke because I think he's best equipped to answer that question.
Thank you very much. For the record, Don Bernanke. Commissioner, thank you for that question. I think one of the reasons that we have been successful in the past is because of our engagement of folks throughout the community. So consultants who have helped us that really have a much better sense of the various communities than we might have. And that has been critically important to our ability to engage as many people as possible. As I think you can all see, there are a lot of jobs associated with this with regard to the trades. I think it's a unique opportunity for us to truly be able to touch all parts of our city. Similarly, it's an opportunity for the professional services, which sometimes have not been engaged in such an active way. And we work hard to do that as well. And so I am in complete agreement with you as to the need for utilizing consultants to help us formulate the program. We have, as I said, we have a track record of success, but if you look at every single one of our projects, every one of the programs we use is different as we learn better ways to do things and better ways to reach out to the community.
Okay. Well, if you could just keep us abreast of what direction you're going to go in, because again, I can anticipate questions from some of my colleagues about who to send people that will have an interest in participating on these types of projects. I think that it's a central area where folks can apply for positions, or if you're working with Hire 360 or whoever you're working with, that there be some type of central warehouse where we have people that can go apply for some of these positions. And then on a professional services side, I'm glad to hear that, because also a lot of times when we talk about MWB participation, it's usually in the construction industry, and we know that there's architects and engineers out there that can perform on some of these projects, and so that's good to hear that you're looking at that as well. So again, I would just as this project continues moving forward, and at some point gets the zoning, at some point gets the city council, just be cognizant of that, and making sure that some of these other pieces of the puzzle are in place. And again, I have a tremendous belief in that Related is going to do what they say they're going to do, because they've done it, and the folks over there at Related are really demonstrating how other developers that wanted to work in the city of Chicago, how they should do business in the city of Chicago. So I appreciate the response, and I look forward to continuing dialogue with the folks at Related. And then again, I just want to congratulate my colleague Brendan Ruddy for another tremendous project that's coming to his ward.
And Alderman Riley has been very patient waiting to speak since all day. But let me go first to Commissioner Searle, followed by Commissioner Cox. I just unmuted you.
Okay, thank you. So my question was, if I'm coming from the west, do I, in a Uber or car, do I need to get on Lakeshore Drive? And where would I do that? How do I get to the site from Lakeshore Drive? I'm not quite sure I understand this ingress and egress, which was actually Mr. Adams' question when he did his presentation earlier this morning. Because I'm not seeing there.
So,
Go ahead.
Commissioner Searle, let me try to do that. If we could go back a couple, right there. I'll start off, there's 2 points of connection. There's an east connection and a west connection. And the west connection is down North Water Street. And so if you were to approach the development from the west and you happen to be on, North Water Street, you would come to the site here into the courtyard you see at the bottom of the screen there. So west is at the bottom and east is Lakeshore Drive is on the north of the project. So that's the way you would approach. At that point, you could not only do drop off and or pickup, you could also access the parking by going down underneath the building, which you see on the left right there going into the north building. So that's one way of access and egress, and that is for cars only. So vehicular traffic, no truck traffic, no drop-offs, no deliveries. As you go up to the Lakeshore Drive side, as you are probably aware, our predecessor that was going to build the Spire built an on-ramp and an off-ramp. The off-ramp is for traffic traveling southbound on Lakeshore Drive. So on the screen we're looking at traveling from left to right, yes, as the arrow is going on. Delivery trucks, so this says service circulation, is this red line that you see. So delivery trucks will come down off that ramp off of Lakeshore Drive. They will either come around and hook up to the north building and do a little bit of a move there and back into the north building for deliveries, or do one quick move and back into the south building. When they are done, they will both then leave underneath Lakeshore Drive and get back onto middle or lower Lakeshore Drive as moving northbound, and have to exit either at Grand or Illinois because they can't get back on upper Lakeshore Drive. So all truck traffic, all deliveries happen on the backside. As well, if you go to the next slide, I believe, your vehicular circulation is the same thing. So if you're in a taxi and you're traveling on Lakeshore Drive, or you're coming from someplace in the city where this is more convenient, that taxi and rideshare would come down off of Lakeshore Drive and drop their person here at either the north or the south building on the back circle. So there are 2 access points. You cannot cross over. One of the critical pieces, not only for us, but for the neighborhood, was they were very concerned with traffic on North Water Street and people not being able to drive down North Water and then try to get on Lakeshore Drive. So we've been very careful to have a true separation there, that will not be allowed. So separation, 2 points of access, but also 2 points of delivery to the site.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cox.
Try to be brief. I mean, firstly, obviously, we're looking at 2 very, very elegant towers, which I think are going to be iconic in the lakefront skyline. And so I just thank Related for really inspiring their architects to do their best work. I walk this area very often, and I'm glad that the time where we just chop buildings off at a certain height and call it a day are over, and that we're molding and shaping Chicago's skyline. So my compliments to you all. I also think the park is an important amenity, and I appreciate the description of access to it from the bike and pedway, because this site is extraordinarily isolated. And if everyone had to come to the site, from the west, people wouldn't even find the park. But I do think that access from the bike and pedway should give everyone ample access, and it will be heavily used. We haven't talked a little bit about how it's going to get built. My understanding is that Related Midwest is going to build the park, and the Park District will then take on the maintenance. But the design and construction of the park, I think, has a budget of about $15 million. And I know that in the agreement, the developer has agreed to fund 10 million of that 15 million, and that the city has agreed to contribute 5 million of the kind of open space impact fees. Now, of course, that is contingent on, that's subject to the council's approval, and that hasn't happened yet. So I know that the plan development statement says that the developer will contribute 10 million, but that actually won't happen until they draw the foundation permits. So the question is, how do we get into the public record that the planning department intends to submit the open space impact fees as an ordinance to the council in July, so that it will allow the park district to actually begin the design and community process, so that this park can get started this year. So I don't know if that's a request that that language be submitted for the record, but I want to make sure that we understand that the resources are there to build the park, and that while we have to still submit that request to council, the city is committing to making that request to council for the $5 million. So I don't know who amongst the staff can clarify that, but I just wanted to get that on the record, because I know there's concern that those funds really need to go along with this approval.
I'm not sure that Commissioner Kelly is on to answer that. Is there any another staff member?
Well, I know DPD is the one that's going to submit the requests.
Well, actually, Alderman Riley's here, and I can answer this question.
And I was just going to go to you, Alderman Riley. So why don't you go ahead and answer the question and then take it from there.
Great, thank you very much. For the record, Alderman Riley, 42nd Ward, downtown Chicago. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the commission. Quickly, to answer Commissioner Cox's question about the open space impact fee money, that is actually something that his staff will be working with me on in my office, and it's likely I'll be introducing that ordinance myself, as is typical practice at the Chicago City Council. So I think really the public record has been created. This is being transcribed on the local alderman of record, and I'm saying today on the record that we are committed to providing the $5 million in open space impact fee money. That has always been anticipated as the city's match for this project since even before Related Midwest came to the scene on this site. So rest assured that money will be flowing to the site, and we're working with the Chicago Park District to ensure that of that $5 million in open space impact fee money, $500,000 will be dedicated to park design, so that does not delay unnecessarily. And to Alderman Burnett's question about designing that park, of course, that is going to be a very inclusive public process managed by the Park District. Every stakeholder will be invited to the table, and especially the DuSable Coalition. As has been noted, they've been working on this for close to 40 years now. And I will also take a bit of credit for the installation of the DuSable statue on Michigan Avenue. I actually sponsored the ordinance that did that. And I'm also proud to say I'm the guy who changed the name of Michigan Avenue Bridge to DuSable Bridge. So I do absolutely appreciate his legacy, and it's taken far too long for us to deliver this long overdue park. I'd like to make a brief statement, since this has been kind of a mostly labor of love over the last 2.5 years. As you all know, this site's remained undeveloped for nearly a decade and a half. since the approved Spire development stalled. And during that time, Related acquired the land and has spent years developing a new plan grounded in reality that will finally fill that giant 100-foot deep hole in the ground and deliver a beautiful new DuSable Park to the residents of Chicago. In 2018, the developer proposed the construction of 2 towers connected by a tall podium base, as was noted. Those were taller towers and also included a hotel. During our public input process, neighbors shared concerns regarding the hotel use, the tall podium base of the buildings, traffic concerns for East-North Water Street, and security issues on the Riverwalk and at DuSable Park. None of the neighbors ever complained about the originally proposed height of the towers. In fact, it was the developer's decision, not mine or the neighbors, to scale back the height of the proposed structures. Obviously, the mixture of uses in those structures had something to do with it. Following meetings with SOAR, which is the Neighborhood Association of Record, and other local stakeholders, we condensed all of those concerns into a working punch list of infrastructure and design issues that the developer would be required to address. In March 2019, I co-hosted another public presentation with SOAR to share the developer's revised proposal before a nearly full ballroom at the Hotel Intercontinental. The proposal before us today has been revised. The 2 residential buildings, 875 feet and 675 feet respectively, will deliver 1,100 residential units supported by ground floor commercial and amenity space. The applicant has worked very hard to address community concerns, including elimination of the previously proposed hotel and the monolithic building podium, the enhancement of the north bank of the Chicago River and Riverwalk, and providing safe pedestrian access to DuSable Park. In addition to addressing architectural and open space concerns, we conducted a granular review of multiple traffic and loading studies, as you can see from the slides here today. As a result, the developer was required to make some major design and infrastructure changes to improve traffic flow, loading, and public safety in the surrounding area. And all of those changes will be funded entirely by the developer, and I would encourage commissioners to review the planned development obligations. The list is rather lengthy, and I think a real win for the city of Chicago and Chicago taxpayers. To address neighborhood concerns about future traffic impacts, the applicant will be required to conduct an updated study of traffic and loading in between the 2 construction phases of this project. So after Tower 1 is occupied, but before Tower 2 is issued any permits to allow for the 2nd phase of construction. Conducting this updated mid-phase traffic study with fresh vehicular counts between these 2 phases of construction, CDOT staff and my office will have the accurate traffic data that we need to reflect on how the new tower is impacting the area. This will give the city valuable insight regarding the added density and vehicular activity generated by Tower 1 and allow us to make adjustments, if necessary, to East-North Water Street. If warranted by the study, TNP vehicles could be restricted on where they pick up and drop off. Should the study determine further infrastructure upgrades or improvements are warranted, the applicant would be responsible for funding those upgrades or improvements prior to receiving Part 2 approval for the Phase 2 tower. In addition to the long list of infrastructure improvements this project will deliver to the surrounding neighborhood, the developer, as has been mentioned, is committing $10 million toward the design and construction of DuSable Park. As a DuSable coalition will be very happy to tell you, DuSable Park is decades overdue. This project will help to deliver on the late Mayor Harold Washington's commitment to properly honor Jean-Baptiste DuSable, our city's first resident, with a public park along the river where he established his homestead and became the first non-native resident of Chicago. This important piece of public open space will be connected by a landscaped riverfront walkway that extends to DuSable Park and the Navy Pier flyover. This project, with the inclusion of DuSable Park, will deliver over 4.5 acres of brand new public open green space. This project will also benefit the city of Chicago with a $3.9 million payment to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the creation of nearly 3,000 construction jobs. And to those interested in minority hiring and diverse work sites as I am, I'm very pleased to report that at my request, Related is committed to hiring a diverse workforce to construct this project. The developer is committed to utilize 26% of qualified certified minority business enterprises and 6% of women-owned business enterprises on this project, and is also committed to hiring Chicago residents to ensure that 50% or more of their workforce are local workers. Although this was a long and difficult negotiation, I believe it's resulted in a far superior project to the one that was initially proposed. I want to recognize and thank Kurt Bailey of Related and his talented team of architects, traffic engineers, and of course, lawyers for negotiating with us in good faith to deliver what will be a fantastic addition to our iconic city skyline. I want to thank SOAR and neighborhood residents for all of their feedback and suggestions throughout our process. And I also want to thank the Department of Planning and Development and the Department of Transportation senior staff. They were instrumental in helping us to secure these important improvements. I am very appreciative of their counsel and their support. So for all of the reasons listed above, I respectfully request a favorable vote by the Plan Commission. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Alderman Riley. And do the commissioners have any additional questions for staff, the applicant, or the alderman? I would like to make one comment, again, echoing much of what has already been said, but reminding us, first of all, I'm very, very happy for the not only these beautiful towers, but also the DuSable Park. I think this is, as has been said, very long overdue and very much in the making. So I think it's great. But I also want to remind us of who DuSable's wife was and who was on this land. And so I think as we honor DuSable, I think it'd be really important also not to change the name of the park. I think the park, of course, is DuSable Park. But if there's any monuments or any landmarks or any writings anywhere, and also for the record, to be mindful that Kirihawa, who is a Potawatomi native, was his wife, and which is part of where the connection comes to the ownership of that land. So I think it's important for the public record that we always remember the native presence in Chicago that preceded other settlements. And I think with more conversation, we could talk about how they also shaped our use of water, the trade routes, and so on. So just wanted to state that for the record. Let me also call, before I call for a motion, let me call on Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I just have to go on record also acknowledging the DuSable Park and all the work that's gone into it historically, as well as what we're going to see in the future. The buildings are beautiful, and that park there will be an amenity that I think will serve the Chicago land for years to come. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really great to see the sort of combination of the public space access to this development. And so congratulations to you, Alderman Riley, and to everybody involved. But let me, I'm ready to entertain a motion on the proposed amendment to residential business plan development 368 to allow for the construction of a phase development for 2 residential buildings that are 865 and 765 foot tall, containing 1,100 residential units, ground floor commercial and amenity space, and 300 accessory parking spaces, find that it meets the requirements for approval.
Motion by Villegas.
Moved by Commissioner Villegas.
I'll second, Commissioner.
Seconded by, I'm sorry, seconded by,
Commissioner Garza.
oh, sorry, Commissioner Garza. I should be recognizing people's voices.
That's okay.
I will also note before I actually do the roll call vote, we're going to have 2 votes on this item. We have 2 votes on this item. And so the first one is the one that I just read. So let me do the roll call vote on that. Commissioner Biaggi. All right, Commissioner Brumfield.
Nope. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, yes on Biaggi, yes on Brumfield. Commissioner Burnett.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordova is a yes vote. Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner Flores.
Yes.
Commissioner Garza.
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Kelly, for reasons that there's a park involved, is recusing himself from this item. Commissioner Lyons.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Commissioner Novata.
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes, I think, has stepped off. Commissioner Searle.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw, she had a proxy vote on this one as a yes. and Commissioner Tunney,
Yes.
Commissioner Villegas,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wagiston.
Yes.
How wonderful that y'all are still here. This is really great.
It's not really that wonderful, no.
Well, and if it's any consolation to you, when I always do the briefings before our plan commission meeting. My briefing for today's commission meeting was 3.5 hours. So yes, this was definitely a catch-up meeting, and we definitely are pleased that everybody is still here. So that motion passes. Congratulations. I'm going to go now to the next motion that's needed for these items. Do I have a motion on the proposed Lake Michigan and Chicago Lakefront protection application for the property generally located at 408 North Lakeshore Drive, finding that it meets the requirement for approval? Do I have a motion of approval?
So moved by Villegas.
Villegas,
Seconded, Novara.
and seconded by Commissioner Nevada. Okay, another roll call vote then. Commissioner Biaggi,
Yes.
Commissioner Brumfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett,
Yes.
Commissioner Cordova, that's me, yes. Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores,
Yes.
Commissioner Garza.
Yes.
I'm assuming Kelly's still going to be a recusal on this one as well. Commissioner Lyons,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Commissioner Novada,
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes, I'm sorry, it's gone. Commissioner Searle,
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Shaw vote yes. Oh, she's back. All right. Commissioner Tunney,
Yes.
Commissioner Villegas,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wagaspat. Congratulations, everybody. Motion passes. And congratulations to you, Commissioner Alderman Riley. We've got still some more items for you. I'm going to go next to item number 9. Then we will go back to 7, and then we will jump back up to 10. On number 9, the next item is a proposed residential business plan development submitted by the Habitat Company for the property generally located at 344 North Canal Street. The applicant proposes to rezone the property from DS5 Downtown Service District to DX5 Downtown Mixed Use District prior to establishing a plan development to construct a 375 tall mixed use building containing 343 residential units, ground floor commercial, and 123 accessory parking spaces. The applicant will be using the neighborhood opportunity bonus to increase the allowable floor area ratio from the base 5.0 to 8.1. The subject site is located in the 42nd Ward. And Emily Thrun, you're such a pro. You've already got your slides up. You will present the context. The applicant will present the proposal following your presentation.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Emily Thrun with the Department of Planning and Development. The applicant appears here today because they are proposing to rezone the property from DS-5 to DX-5 prior to establishing a planned development to construct a 33-story building with 343 residential units, ground floor commercial space, and 123 parking spaces. The subject site is located in the near west side community area. Almost 58% of the residents take transit, walk, or bike to work. 51% of the residents work in the near north side loop or near west side community area, and almost 67% of the residents have a bachelor's degree or graduate professional degree. The area contains a mix of mid-rise loft buildings and glass and concrete high-rises. The site is located on the west side of Canal between Kinsey and Fulton. The site is irregularly shaped with 2 spurs that extend to Clinton Street. The site is currently occupied by a former tire dealer, Cassidy Tire. The site is located in a transit-served location and is approximately 1,000 feet northeast of the CTA's Clinton, Pink, and Green Line stop. The site is currently zoned DS-5, and the applicant is proposing to rezone it to DS-5 prior to establishing a planned development. The applicant will use the neighborhood opportunity bonus to increase the allowable floor area ratio from the base of 5 to 8.1. The surrounding zoning districts in the immediate area are DS-5, DX-16, and numerous planned developments. The surrounding land uses for the area are primarily residential, commercial, and office. This image includes the project in context of the surrounding area looking southeast. And this is a section drawing of the proposed building, including some of the heights of the surrounding buildings. The next series of slides include images of the existing pedestrian context on the site and the same pedestrian level view of the proposed project. This is a view along Canal Street looking north, and another view on Canal Street looking towards the entry to the proposed building. And this is a view at the entry of the proposed building looking directly west. The next 4 slides include views along Canal looking south. And this is a rendering showing the full extent of the proposed building. And a rendering showing the full extent of the building looking from Kinsey looking southwest. A rendering showing the building from Kinsey looking southeast. The project is subject to both the Central Area Plan and the Central Area Action Plan. Some of the goals of the plans are to strengthen the city as an economic engine, promote alternative modes of transportation, and encourage a mix of uses. Now I will turn the presentation over to Paul Shado, the applicant's attorney, who will introduce the team and further explain the details of the proposal.
Thank you, Emily. Good afternoon, or I should say evening, Madam Chair and members of the Plan Commission. My name is Paul Shadle from the law firm of DLA Piper, and I, along with my partner, Katie Jenke Dale, represent the applicant in this matter, the Habitat Company. And with us today are Daniel Levin, the founder and chairman of Habitat, Matt Fiasconi, the president of Habitat, Vern Lohman, the project architect with SCB Architects, and Lynn Means, our traffic consultant with DeWalt Hamilton. This PD application was filed in December of 2019, and I would like to thank Commissioner Cox and his staff at DPD, Commissioner Navarra and her staff at the Department of Housing, and Alderman Riley for a number of years of working together with the Habitat team prior to the filing of this application to review and refine the design for what is a dramatic and creative improvement of a challenging site. The review process, culminating in a community meeting at the East Bank Club on December 9th of last year, resulted in a number of changes to the project. And on this page, you can see on the left, there's been a modified entry. The left is the original plan, which showed 2 driveways on Canal. That has been changed to what you see on the right with a single drive that Vern will describe in more detail. They've also added a well-lit pedestrian walk along the south boundary of the property. Next slide, please. This page shows some additional changes, including modified exterior design. That's the left is the beginning, the right is the end. There were multiple iterations in between, resulting from conversations with, again, DPD, the alderman, and the community. They will have an enhanced and covered dog walk, which you will see in a later slide. They will provide improvements to the rail embankments that run along the spurs that Emily described earlier on this unusually shaped property. And they will also implement a one-way street conversion pilot program along both Canal and Clinton Streets, which will be described in more detail later. I'll now turn this over to Vern Lohman with SCB to describe the project in more detail.
Thank you, Paul. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. Just starting on the site plan for the project. The main portion of the site is on Canal Street on the right side of this drawing, with 2 legs that extend west to Clinton. The gray area in the middle of the drawing is an abutment for the overhead commuter train tracks. There is a single curb cut on Canal, and traffic flow is designed to encourage the use of Clinton for ingress and egress. All loading enters and exits from Clinton. The main entry to this building is on the east side of the site with a public plaza on Canal. Next slide. At the ground floor, the main lobby and commercial space overlook the 22-foot wide plaza on Canal. Access to loading and bike parking is from the service drive on the west side of the site. Next slide, please. Thank you. The parking facility houses 123 cars on 3 levels. It is enclosed and mechanically ventilated. Next. The 5th floor is the amenity level for the residents with outdoor and indoor amenities. Next. The typical residential floor has efficiency, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom units. Next. The upper residential plan sets back on the 31st floor to create terraces for the units and create a slim profile to the building. Next slide, please. Between the 5th floor deck and the upper roof, the project has a 50% green roof. Next. The building is clad in a composition of solid panels and high performance vision glass. Next. The elevations are treated with the same level of finish all around the tower and podium. Next slide. In section, you can see the arrangement of the ground floor uses, the parking facility, the amenity deck with the sculpted tower above. The podium is clad in a dark bronze tone metal panel system that is articulated with projecting fins. Next. The tower features bronze tone columns and spandrel panels in a 3-story rhythm, articulated with balconies. Next slide. And the top of the building is set back to create roof terraces and to vary the tower profile against the skyline. Through block, pedestrian walks are provided on both sides of the site to connect Clinton and Canal. Fully enclosed bike parking is provided in the building as well as public bike parking along Canal Street. Clinton and Canal are both converted to one-way traffic flow. Back 1 slide. Thank you. Automobiles have access from Canal and Clinton, and the turnaround encourages movement to the west. Loading is accessed only from Clinton. Next slide. To sum up, a traffic study was conducted by Lynn Means of DeWalt, Hamilton, and modifications were made on the plan based on their recommendations. 1, secure bike parking is provided. 2, parking garage and loading access is designed to maximize pedestrian access. 3, safe and accessible pedestrian routes have been added. 4, and based on feedback from Alderman Riley and neighbors, Canal and Clinton Street will be converted to one-way traffic between Lake and Kinsey Streets. Next slide. The project creates an enhanced urban experience for pedestrians with lively active uses on Plaza and Canal. The new pedestrian use and tower massing knits the site back into the urban fabric of the neighborhood. Along Clinton Street, the project team will work with the railway agencies to create public art on the existing train viaduct. And in response to comments from Alderman Riley and neighbors, an expanded and covered dog walk was added to the northwest corner of the site. The massing and exterior design of the tower evolved and were improved through a review process undertaken with Alderman Riley and the Department of Planning and Development. The plan complies with all aspects of the city's landscape requirements. Next. The project meets the city's requirements for quality materials for planned developments. The project will score 100 points to satisfy the city's sustainable development policy. and the project will enhance bird safety and satisfy the best practices checklist. Next slide. Finally, the project complies with all city stormwater requirements. And now I'll turn the presentation back to Paul Shadle.
Thank you, Vern. And again, for the record, I'm Paul Shadle with DLA Piper. The project will also fully comply with the city's affordable requirements ordinance by providing the required 34 units of affordable housing for a period of 30 years in a location that is approximately, I believe, a mile from the site, called the Elm Tower, located at 1130 North Dearborn, which is at the southwest corner of Dearborn and Elm. Next slide, please. The project will include a number of public benefits as described on this slide. And with respect to the MBE and WBE goals, the Habitat Company has a long track record of engaging minority and women-owned business enterprises in connection with affordable housing projects and other projects, and will do so on this project. The company hasn't yet chosen a general contractor for the project, but sent letters last week, more than 30 letters to a range of MBE, WB, and local builder groups, inviting them to bid on the project, and will actively pursue the goals outlined in the PD ordinance for this project. The company also will seek through its general contractor to promote the hiring of Chicago residents. As noted earlier, the Habitat team of consultants is here and available to answer questions. And now I will turn the presentation back over to Emily. Our entire team, though, is here, as I say, to answer questions.
Thank you, Paul. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the materials submitted by the applicant and has concluded that the proposal would be appropriate for the following reasons. The project promotes the safe and efficient circulation of pedestrians, cyclists, and motor vehicles, and is designed to promote pedestrian interest, safety, and comfort. The building is oriented to create active spaces lining Canal Street. The project will include numerous amenities for the residents, including an outdoor pool and sun deck and lounge area, steam and sauna room, game room, media room, and fitness rooms. Additionally, the proposed development is compatible with the character of the surrounding area in terms of uses, density, and scale. Please refer to my staff report for further details on this project and the plans identified here today. Based on the foregoing, the zoning administrator recommends that the application for the planned development be approved and forwarded to the City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards as such. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thren. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, I want to congratulate my colleague, Alderman Riley, for another beautiful project, taking into account the concerns of his constituents, and again, just adding to our skyline. During the presentation, I thought I heard Council say that the Habitat has not selected a general contractor, and just wanted to see if there was an appetite for Habitat to take a look at a joint venture with some type of MWBE firm, given that selection of a general contractor hasn't taken place yet.
I would ask Matt Fiasconi to be promoted to a participant at this point.
I think I am on. This is Matt Fiasconi. I'm the president of the Habitat Company, and I'd be happy to speak to that. Throughout our nearly 50-year history, the Habitat Company has developed and operated thousands of apartments in Chicago, always with a focus on affordable housing that's an important role in a vibrant city. Currently, between our Chicago Housing Authority and we have 12,000 affordable apartments in Chicago.
Okay, some of that is breaking
Work
up.
with the city hires. Example, today we have active from both the city and the CHA mixed use development. I mentioned that as just the most recent example of where we have not only met the city's objectives, but CHA's Section 3 requirements and local requests from the aldermen. We maintain internal capacity to monitor our compliance. We establish relationships with community-based groups regularly. One such example is our longstanding relationship with the CARE organization, of which we have been recognized as the largest hiring company in Chicago. And that's just one example of the way that we fulfill what we see as a responsibility to meet and exceed the city's objectives.
Is that good, Mr. Commissioner Villegas?
So, yeah, Madam Chair, he had broke up, and so I'm not
Right.
sure about during his response did he say that he would take into consideration the possibility of actually joint venture, having a JV with MWBE participant, so that besides the 26th and 6th, there's a possibility of M or W as a potential JV general contractor.
So because you broke up, we didn't get a clear answer on that. Do you want to directly answer that question?
Sure, this is Bat Fiasconi again. Yes, we have done that in the past, and we'll consider it on this job as well. We have several JVs on the project I referred to in the 28th Ward, so it's something that we're totally willing to do, and we'll work on it on this project as well.
Okay, so then again, and given that that the recent against City Council and zoning committees, this was a topic that was brought up. I bring this up now to all the developers, so that way as we move forward for approval within the City Council or within the zoning committee, these are the questions that are being posed, and I just want to again put the developer world on notice that the 26 and 6 is always the floor, and with the City Council that's made up 32 members that are Black and brown, there needs to be some real serious consideration in making sure that the 26 and 6 obviously is met, but it's just that's making sure that that's just the floor. There's room to do more, especially given the time that we're under right now. So I appreciate hearing the answer that you consider that. We'll look forward to communicating with you to kind of find out what that process is and making sure that folks that are interested in pursuing this project as a JV or as a general contractor will have an opportunity to reach out and present their credentials to you. So again, thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations again, Alderman Riley.
And before I go to Alderman Riley, Commissioner Searle, and you're already unmuted.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, in this case, I'm wondering if the process with, the community may have downgraded the design on this building a little bit. I think the street level looks very good, but the facade in between the two bookends is not as interesting as it was when it started out. Also, I'm very curious about why the walkway on the south side of the building is really useful. It's, it looks like it walks along the sort of unlit edge of the building on the south and then past the loading dock. If you go to slide 32, that shows you the plan at least. And since there's the other walkway on the north side of the building, I just wonder if this one's even really worthwhile, to get to Clinton from that side. It goes along the entrance to the driveway. It just seems like maybe an unnecessary walk. And
Commissioner Searle, this is Paul Shadle.
Okay, yes.
I can just, and the architect may have an opinion on it, but I would just note that part of the feedback we got is that this space is used for this purpose now, that is pedestrians are passing across that area.
Okay.
And this will just add some paving and some lighting that will make what people are doing already safer.
Okay, so people do use that now. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. I would be remiss also if I did not commend my colleague Brandon Riley on all of the great projects that he's bringing to the city of Chicago, all of the potential tax dollars that's coming to the city, and all of the hours that he have to put in getting compromises on these things with the community. I know it's not easy because we do it all the time, and I commend you on everything that you do. Keep up the good work. Good project.
Okay, nice setup for you, for Alderman Riley. You go ahead and present your comments.
Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the commission, and thank you, Alderman Burnett and Villegas, for the kind words. We do work awfully hard with the Department of Planning to try and get these projects right, not just for the developer, but also for the surrounding neighborhood. This proposed development, I think, will be a positive addition to the neighborhood. It will create a high-quality mixed-use development on this currently underutilized site. The applicant participated in a very robust community process, including a public community meeting held in March of 2020. As a result, the proposed plan development includes the following public benefits to be delivered at the developer's expense. The implementation of a pilot program to reconfigure the traffic direction on Canal to one-way northbound and Clinton to one-way southbound. That will be a 6-month study. And of course, based on the results of that study, adjustments can be made. But it is something that longtime residents of the neighborhood reminded CDOT that actually once upon a time, Canal was one-way northbound and Clinton was one-way southbound. And years ago, for some reason, it was changed. But with all of the new exciting development coming to the Canal and Clinton corridor, it does make sense to try out a pilot, changing the directionality of those streets. In addition to that improvement for circulation in the neighborhood, as I think was mentioned earlier, the developer will be contributing $250,000 to fund an area-wide railroad crossing signal upgrade project, which is very important for public safety, and I know it's one that CDOT is very excited about. And then also a $3.1 million payment to the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, including about $2.5 million for the NOF, and then about $312,000 each to the Local Impact and Adopt a Landmark funds. The reconfiguration of building access and traffic circulation, including a secondary drop-off lay-by-lane near the rear of the building, accessible from Clinton. As was mentioned, the creation of a covered dog-friendly area under the Clinton Viaduct with a canopy. And then also the inclusion of pedestrian walk across the southern portion of the property, which was mentioned. That's how it behaves today, and we just simply want to eliminate the hazards of trip and fall and those sorts of calamities. And then, of course, this will add 34 affordable units at Elm Street Plaza, located at Dearborn and Elm in the Gold Coast. It's anticipated the project is going to create 600 construction jobs and 17 permanent jobs in the building, and the annual property tax revenue should come in just shy of $2 million per year. Habitat has affirmed its commitment to hiring a diverse workforce, and that is their track record in the city of Chicago. They're committed to utilizing 26% of qualified certified minority business enterprises and 6% of women-owned business enterprises on this project, and they will work to hire residents to make up 50% of their workforce from the city of Chicago. That said, as Alderman Villegas mentioned, that's the floor. We're always seeking developers to do better with minority hiring and promoting a diverse workforce on the site. I want to thank Habitat and their entire team for incorporating the requested changes to their proposal and responding to community concerns. I also want to thank the Department of Planning and Development, CDOT. They've spent a tremendous amount of time working on this project. And I also wanted to address one issue that Commissioner Searle raised related to the design. And certainly beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But I can tell you, actually, the changes to the design were not driven by neighborhood feedback. Those changes were not, so I want to let you know, the neighbors did not design this building. In fact, Commissioner Cox's team worked with the developer's architect extensively as this project evolved over time. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that the city of Chicago is not in the business of having neighbors design buildings. But that said, I thank you all for your consideration and urge an aye vote so this can be reported to the city's zoning committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alderman Riley. Commissioner Cox, do you have a question for staff, applicant, or the alderman?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just want to, following on Commissioner Riley's comment, I don't think the planning department wants to take responsibility for this design. This is the architect and the developer. You know, it really, I think we have to really try to understand and evaluate the process in a manner that we can aspire these projects to really not just make a contribution to the bottom line, which it does as a development site, but also that we hold it to the same standard that we would hold to a building on the lakefront. So we just saw a building and by the SOM and related team, and we showered it with compliments for how it established really something that is iconic. I think this site deserves the same thing. And if our process is not helping to get developers and their design teams to a point where they're doing inspiring work, then we need to look at our process. And I don't know if it's a process of peer review, other people who have done buildings of this type, offering observations, but I think we really need to, look at our process because we are trying not to create just generic high-rise apartment buildings. We're trying that every building that comes before this commission is genuinely the best possible addition to the legacy of design excellence in this city. So, you know, I guess we should be satisfied that we're moving forward. It's a significant investment, but I think there's something still not working about our design review process if this is the outcome.
Go ahead, Alderman Riley.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I wanted to respond to the commissioner's concerns, and I also wanted to clarify, I'm not suggesting the Department of Planning designed this building either. But as the commissioner knows, he's got an incredibly talented staff, and those are the folks that I rely upon when we aren't satisfied with the design. And I know that the commissioner is frustrated with the outcome on this project. I would argue it's not the process, but in fact, the reality that developers ultimately set the budget for their project. Obviously, budgets tend to drive design and building components. And our work in this process as the government zoning approval entity is to help try and guide the developer and their team along to help them make wise design decisions and produce better buildings for us. But at the end of the day, the client, the developer, determines how much they're willing to spend on design elements and what they look like. And so because city government can't dictate to the T how folks choose to improve their property, we do, I think, spend a lot of time nudging and cajoling and counseling developers and their architects to make improvements. And I can say in this case, Commissioner Cox's staff worked overtime in that regard and met with the developer and their architect on numerous occasions to try and urge them to make substantial design changes. At the end of the day, the architect's clients had to make decisions on how far they wanted to go. And this is what we as you'll note, the various designs throughout the process didn't change dramatically, but I can say for a fact that's not without tremendous effort by the Department of Planning and Development to try and get that to happen. So I just wanted to make sure that we're all clear here that I think planning did a fantastic job advocating for even more design changes than were delivered.
Go ahead, Commissioner Cox, if you want to respond.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that clarification, and I would agree. I know the staff worked mightily to assist the proposing team, the developer and the architect, to try and do the best work. I think we are putting in place some things that should help the architect do their best work by asking in the early design feasibility stage to come up with 3 radically different proposals so that we are looking at truly different ways to mass and design the site, because the three options that you showed from the original to the end were really just the same thing with a different articulation of the skin. I think this process could certainly be helped if the architect and the developer were asked in the early ideation stage to come up with three radically different proposals so that we can have a genuine conversation about what might be best as we move forward. So we put that in place, and you're starting to see, you'll start to see the results of teams bringing forward genuinely different proposals so that we can have a really robust conversation about what is going to be contributing in the kind of development of the downtown. So it's a work in progress, but I think we're moving forward.
Okay, and with that, do I have a motion on the proposed residential business plan development to allow for the construction of a 375-foot tall mixed-use building containing 342 residential units, ground floor commercial, and 123 accessory parking spaces, finding that it meets the requirements for approval?
So
Motion to pass.
Moved by Commissioner Burnett and seconded by
Wagisbeck.
Wagisbeck, I'm sorry, thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Okay, Commissioner Biaggi. Commissioner Brumfeld.
Right. And it's weird.
Yes, on Commissioner Brumfeld. Commissioner Burnett.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordova, yes. Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner Flores.
Yes.
Commissioner Garza.
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly.
Yes.
Commissioner Lyons.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Commissioner Novata.
Yes.
Commissioner Searle.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw. Commissioner Tunney.
Yes.
Commissioner Villegas.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagisbeck.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations. I'm going to go back now to number 7, and then we have number 10. We're almost getting there. So the next item on the agenda is a proposed technical amendment to plan development number 233 submitted by Napleton Chicago Imports LLC for the property generally located at 570 West Monroe Street. The applicant is proposing to add indoor light equipment sales and rental and motor vehicle repair shop, not including body work, painting, or commercial vehicle repairs as permitted uses in sub-area A. No other changes are proposed, and all other sub-areas will remain as previously approved. The subject site is located in the 42nd Ward. Noah Safranek will provide the context overview, and the applicant will present their proposal.
Good evening. For the record, Noah Safranek with the Department of Planning and Development. In the words of Sam Cooke, I'm going to try to bring this home. I have the last two. I'm going to try to do this quickly and as efficiently as I can for everybody here. Okay, this proposed technical amendment is generally located at 570 West Monroe Street. It's located within the Near West Side community area within the 42nd Ward. The applicant, Napleton Chicago Imports LLC, and their development team appear here today for the purposes of amending Plan Development Number 233. This request is being submitted as a mandatory application due to the fact that the proposal seeks to add a new use to one specific sub-area of this plan development. No other changes are proposed as a result of this application. All right, the subject site is located in the central planning region. The subject site is located in the Near West community area, which includes such neighborhoods as the West Loop, Fulton Market, Greektown, University Village, South Water Market, and the Illinois Medical District. The subject site is currently zoned PD number 233, and the yellow box indicates the area which is the subject of today's proposal. This proposed development site sits adjacent to a variety of transit options consisting of various CTA bus routes, the Ogilvie Transportation Center located just to the northeast of the site, and Union Station located just to the south of the site. The I-90 Kennedy Expressway also sits immediately west of the subject site. The area highlighted in red was previously improved with a Walmart store that has been vacant since it closed back in January of 2017. The applicant has proposed an interior and exterior renovation of that space to receive an automobile sales facility. The proposed amendment would seek to add that use along with auto repairs limited to light scale work customarily found along with a dealership. Again, no other changes are proposed to this plan development. The applicant met with the local alderman back in December of 2019 about the proposal and followed that with a plan development application to make this minor technical amendment in March of 2020. At this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to the development team led by attorney Jack George to discuss the details of the proposal.
Good evening, everyone, and Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jack George, and I'm the attorney for the development. On this slide, in the next few slides, you'll see these are just context plans. It shows the different photo views of where we're looking at the different pedestrian views, looking south on Peterson and Jefferson, also the corner of Jefferson and Monroe, and then also west on Monroe. The next slide, number 8, which is the pedestrian context. This shows a picture. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yes, this shows a picture of the new rendering of the new Porsche dealership that would be at 570 West Monroe. Again, the next slide, please. Noah, can you turn to the next slide? Thank you. This is just another rendering showing on Monroe Street, a front-on view on Monroe Street of looking at the corner. The corner is where the entrance to the dealership is at. Now on the ground floor, the next slide, please. The next slide, thank you.
Sometimes it doesn't respond right away.
Brett, are you going to pick this up, the architect?
Yes, for the record, this is Robert Bowman, the architect of record for the Napleton Automotive Group.
Thanks, Robert. Okay.
So the existing space is roughly 27,000 square feet. We are splitting that into about 9,000 square feet of front sales and display and office support, with the remaining 18,000 being the service department and parts storage. So at the corner of Jefferson and Monroe is basically the corner entry. And then as you walk in, the plan basically splits off in the two directions, down Monroe and Jefferson. The logic of the plan is based on the entry to the service department, which is on Jefferson at the top of the plan, adjacent to the existing loading dock. So that was the most logical place to put that, since we already had a loading dock and traffic entry. Then from there, it moves down from the service riders, and then primary display for cars and customer support, customer waiting. As you then move from the entry down Monroe, that's the secondary display and customer support and office support and delivery, F&I and finance. So it prongs off for the waiting in the two different functions. In order for the car delivery and for getting cars into the space, about the midpoint along Monroe, we have our automotive delivery, which is new customers, when they take their car, they will exit with the car onto Monroe, and there is a new proposed driveway for that entry. On Jefferson, we about midway from that stairwell to the service entry, there is another service drive, and another drive way there. Then what that's for is our dealer doors, and that's only to bring cars in and out of the showroom, and that is done sparingly as needed if we sell a car off the floor, if we change out a model. And then we're expanding the drive. We're adding a drive for the service entry. Next slide. So if this is looking at Jefferson facade. On the far left, you have the dock, the loading dock, and then directly to our service entry. And then predominantly the existing storefronts, which are up to 10 feet, we are replacing all those with more current frameless glass, so to facilitate visibility into the showroom. The solid portion that you see there, right where you see the two red dimensions, that is an existing exit stairwell from the roof deck. So that is not part of our space, but that's solid because of the stairwell. And then we move to the entry area, which is a 2-story space. And that basically 2-story space captures the corner and for the main entry. The materials are basically the existing facade is corrugated metal, and from the 2-story entry going down Monroe and then going down the other way in Jefferson, that's all existing, and that's going to be painted to match the corporate identity branding for Porsche, which is black. The 2-story entry, we're going to be stripping that because we have got to put the sign element on it, and we're going to be rebuilding that, recladding that to facilitate a new full height curtain wall for the 2-story entry, and the sign band, which will be silver metal panels and signage for the Porsche. Next, and also you see in that one you see the new car delivery doors, which are basically about midway down there. That's for the delivery for people taking their cars out. Next slide. So this is basically showing the entry, showing that you have 2-story glass. It's not, we didn't interrupt the glass for the sign band. The sign band floats in front of that and is thin. So basically that just is a floating sign element, and then we maintain the full height glass that was there for the existing storefront. Next slide. Okay, so this is showing basically the branding of a Porsche with the color. So we got black, corrugated metal on everywhere other than the sign band, which is a bright metallic silver ACM metal material, and the bright red Porsche signage. The storefronts are a ribbon storefront continuously 10 feet all along the ground floor, facilitating vision into the space, all display areas and customer areas, so that there's no inhibiting any view to the interior on the ground floor. Yeah, next slide. So these are the existing sections for the space. There are basically 2 sections. These come off the original drawings, which is the only thing we had available. On the left is your typical lower height solid wall. And then on the right is the section through the 2-story atrium. So the one on the left, you'll notice that there's a concrete beam at 10-foot height. So from the 10-foot down, that'll all be glass. Next slide. Okay, so basically, so this is basically, let me get to that slide here. I can't read off my phone.
Hey, Robert, I'll cover these. So
turn this to Peter Lemon for the traffic study.
Yep. So for the records, Peter Lemon with Kimley Horn. So I'll be concise with these. These are basically the traffic zoning requirements. The 2 main things I wanted to point out is that, and I'll get through it on the next slide, is the kind of access and circulation. The east side of Jefferson would be used as sort of a pickup and drop off area where customers that arrive via their vehicle will pull up on Jefferson, and then if the porter or valet will take the car into service, or they will take their car across the street to parking that is located in a separate garage. So on the left is the customer circulation for sales. You'd pull up next to the site on the lower right, and then you would go to the parking, and then your vehicle would be retrieved and delivered back to you on Jefferson Street for you to leave. And it's similar for sale or for service. You would get out of your car, the attendant will take your car into service, and then you would leave directly from service. Employees that do park will park across the street on Jefferson. And then the last thing I wanted to point out is that trucks delivering vehicles to the dealership, it won't be done on site. They'll actually use off-site inventory at Millennium Park. So you won't have congestion related to truck vehicles that are dropping off vehicles for inventory. With that, I think I'm passing it back over to Robert to finish this.
This is Robert Bowman for the record. So basically, you can go to
Okay, so for the record, you can go back one. Yeah, we can leave it there. So basically, for the record, the existing pedways, the existing pedestrian way is basically all existing trees. We're maintaining and protecting those. We are removing 2 trees to accommodate that our driveways that we're putting in, and we've worked with Joe McCarthy on that, and he's recommended just removing the trees, and we're good with that. But we're going to be maintaining. We're going to be looking at the grates and making sure everything is up to date to the calipers of the existing trees that are there. Across the entire ground floor, as I stated before, it's all open frameless glass. You'll be able to look in and see all the displays, the graphics and video monitors that will be presenting all across the display areas on the ground floor. The only blank walls we will have is that stairwell, which is basically the exit stair from the roof deck. And we have the monolithic front entry, 2-story space, which is pretty dynamic for this type of building. So, and it's also in keeping with what we usually do for a Porsche. Next slide. So considering this is an existing building and most of our utilities are coming from the development itself, we have limited opportunity to make any changes. So what we are doing, we're going to try to beat the energy code by 5%. And because Porsche does have an electric cars, we are going to be installing interior and outside some electric charging stations. And that will get us our 30 points. Obviously the interiors will all be LED lighting, we'll have control systems, lighting controls and all that. We'll do whatever we can above and beyond that. Okay, I'll turn this back over to Jack.
Thank you, Robert. Madam Chairman, it's Jack George again, attorney for the developer. This next slide just goes forward and shows that we will commit to the goals of MBE and WBE, as well as the city residential hiring of 26 and 6 and 50%. Last slide, could you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. This last slide is the economic and community benefits, and it sets forth here a breakdown of what the sales tax revenue will be on the sale of these cars. On the new cars, it's $31,500,000 is the projected sales on the cars, the new cars. 14 million on used cars. On service, it's 5 million, and the total comes to $50,500,000 is the amount of revenue that we anticipate generating from the sale of the cars at this Porsche dealership. To the right of that same slide, it shows on here the number of new jobs that will be created, and it breaks down how those jobs will be categorized for the different people. We really ask for the support of this project. All it is really a technical amendment to permit retail sales of automobiles and repairs of automobiles at this site. We're replacing the old store that was here before that had been vacant for a long time, and we really believe this will be an asset to the community. I have no other questions, no other statements.
All right, so with that, the Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the materials submitted by the applicant. We've concluded that this development is appropriate on the site for the following reasons. First, the proposed project and its use is in conformity to the land use plans included with the Central Area Action Plan adopted by the Chicago Plan Commission back in August of 2009. The proposed amendment seeks to continue to promote economically beneficial development patterns that are compatible with the neighborhood. The plan development continues to promote transit, pedestrian, bicycle use and ensures accessibility for people with disabilities, and it minimizes conflicts in the existing traffic patterns. The minor modifications associated with this proposed new use continue to provide treatments to all sides and areas of the building that are visible to the public with materials, finishes, and architectural details that are appropriate for use on these public-facing right-of-ways. And lastly, copies were circulated to other city departments and agencies, and no comments have been received which have been left unresolved. Please refer to my staff report for further details regarding this project and the plans identified here today. But based on the foregoing, it's the recommendation of the zoning administrator of the Department of Planning and Development that the application to amend Plan Development number 233 be approved and forwarded to the City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards as such. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Safranek. I'm going to go to Alderman Riley since I have no questions or comments from any of the commissioners. Although I do have one quick point of clarification. Mr. George has made reference to this being vacant for a long time. I understand the time is relevant, but it wasn't it 2017?
Oh, I don't know. I think it,
January
no,
2017.
It was January 2000. What, Noah?
January 2017 is when Walmart closed.
That's what I thought. Okay, so it's been vacant now for 3 years. Okay, 18, 19, 20. All right. Alderman Riley, if you'd like to say something. Are you still here?
If he is not here, I do have a letter of support from him on file.
Okay.
Madam Chairwoman, he stepped out. I think for
Let's
another
vote
meeting.
on the proposed amendment to plan development number 233 to add indoor lighting equipment sales and rental and motor vehicle repair shop, not including body work, painting, or commercial vehicle repairs, as permitted uses in sub-area A to allow for the establishment of an auto dealership on the subject site with no other changes proposed to the plan development, finding that it meets the requirements for approval.
So moved.
To pass. Alderman Tunney.
Oh, hello. All right, so Alderman Tunney is here, and was that Commissioner Shaw?
Yep, Commissioner Shaw.
Okay, Commissioner Shaw moved and then seconded by Commissioner, it was kind of simultaneous, and then seconded by Commissioner Tunney. Any further discussion? All righty, let me do a roll call here vote. So Commissioner Biaggi, I believe, is gone.
Yes.
Oh, you are here, okay.
I'm here. Had to step out, sorry.
Did we have a yes vote on you on the last one?
You did, yep.
All right, Commissioner Brumfeld.
Yes, and also for the record, I'd like to say yes for item number 7. I lost connection temporarily.
Okay.
We're on items.
This is 7.
This is 7.
I think it's our last item, that was 7.
You mean 9, because we kind of switched a little bit. Commissioner Burnett. Commissioner Burnett is gone. Commissioner Cordova is a yes. I have a proxy yes from Commissioner Cox on this. Commissioner Flores.
Yes.
Commissioner Garza. He might be still around, but he's not here for this vote. Commissioner Lyons.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Commissioner Novata, I think, has gone. I have a recusal for Commissioner Searle. Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Villegas.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagenspach. Oh, Commissioner
Yes.
Tunney, I'm sorry, you're back here. So Commissioner Tunney is a yes, and Commissioner
Yes.
Wagenspach
Yes.
is a yes.
Kelly.
Okay.
Kelly's
Great
a
job,
yes.
Chairwoman.
Kelly,
Did I miss
Madam Chair.
Kelly?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry, I sure did. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so guess what? We're in the home stretch. And for every commissioner who is here for the roll call vote at the end of this last item, I'm bringing you chocolate when we come back together. So now moving to item number 10. The final item on the agenda is a proposed amendment to Plan Development number 1321, submitted by CSD Six Corners LLC for the property generally located at 3911 North Milwaukee Avenue. The site is currently zoned business plan development number 1321, and the applicant proposes to rezone the site to B3-3 and then to residential business plan development number 1321 as amended. The application contains provisions to re-subdivide the property into 3 sub-areas, with sub-area A and C to receive new development, while sub-area B is to remain unchanged as currently developed. Sub-area A is to be developed with a 10-story building containing retail and commercial uses on the ground floor and 114 independent living units, 144 assisted living and memory care units on the floors above. Sub-area C will be developed with a 1-story commercial building. The plan development as a whole will include 216 accessory vehicular parking stalls. The property is located in the 45th Ward. You will recall that we had several people speak on this item at what seems like a lifetime ago. Mr. Safranek, your slides are up, you're ready to go, and you will provide the context interview followed by the proposal from the developer.
Perfect, yes. For the record, again, my name is Noah Safranek, and I'm with the Department of Planning and Development. This proposed development is generally located at 3911 North Milwaukee Avenue. and it's located within the Portage Park community area within the 45th Ward. The applicant, CSD Six Corners LLC, and their development team appear here today for the purposes of amending Plan Development Number 1321. This request is being submitted as a mandatory application due to the fact that the proposal will result in the following. 1, an increase in building height, and 2, the addition of residential dwelling units as a new permitted use in the originally approved plan development. The subject site is located in the Northwest Planning Region. This subject site is located at an intersection which historically has been referred to as Six Corners. The intersection was at one point in time thought to be the largest commercial center outside of the loop. To help restore the commercial legacy of the area, the Six Corners Economic Development Master Plan was created and subsequently adopted by the Chicago Plan Commission. The proposed development follows the guiding principles that are set forth in that plan by seeking to attract more retail stores and businesses, recognizing and enhancing cultural and entertainment offerings, upgrading building facades and storefronts, developing one of the parcels identified as a key opportunity site within the plan, enhancing the pedestrian environment, and developing attractive outdoor spaces to ensure and encourage gathering of patrons. As preparation for presentation to the Plan Commission, the applicant has undergone an extensive community engagement process. This process started with a community meeting way back in June of 2018, the filing of a plan development in early 2019. Subsequent to that, an approval at the Plan Commission of a plan very similar to what you'll be shown today in April of 2019, another community meeting in September of 2019, and one additional community meeting in February of 2020, all of which I personally attended. The community process resulted in a plan development application being refiled in April of 2020. And in between all of those community meetings were numerous smaller neighborhood meetings with the various community groups and neighborhood associations of the surrounding areas. Based on community feedback and meeting with the Department of Planning and Development and discussions with the local aldermen, a number of changes have been incorporated into the proposal. This includes an increase in the number of independent living units, resulting in a decrease in the number of assisted living units, and an overall increase in the number of affordable units, and the location of those affordable units to now all be on site. Under the previous proposal, the majority of them were to be located off-site. The planned development site is situated in close proximity to a variety of transit options. The site is shown in red on the slide above. It's well served by 3 CTA bus routes running along North Cicero, West Irving Park, and North Milwaukee Avenue. The Grayland Metro Station is located just to the southeast within 1/2 mile of the site, and the Irving Park and Montrose CTA stations along the Blue Line are located within 1 mile of the subject site, located east and north of the site. Additionally, along Milwaukee Avenue is a dedicated bicycle lane, which, as a point of information, has very, very recently been painted, I think within the last 2 weeks. The subject site is currently zoned Plan Development Number 1321, having been approved as a large commercial-only development back in May of 2016. The applicant would be seeking to amend this designation to be Residential Business Plan Development Number 1321 as amended. The subject site is currently surrounded by a variety of other commercial parcels of land, primarily zoned with B designations. The plot of land shown to the east that's zoned RS3 is a bit misleading, as this is utilized as a utility yard for People's Gas.
I'm not doing anything.
Plan development will be divided into 3 sub-areas. Sub-area B, the easternmost parcel along Irving Park, would remain unchanged. And is Sub-area A and C of the site proposal presented with today. Sub-area A and sub-area C is to receive the mixed-use building. As part of the proposed plan development, an existing public alley is shown here in crosshatch on the slide above, and it will be vacated and incorporated into the boundary of the plan development. The context of the site is shown on this slide above, with the top left corner being a view at Irving Park in Milwaukee looking to the east. You see the Sears department store located generally in the center, the former Sears department store located generally in the center of the image. The top right corner is Irving Park and Milwaukee Avenue looking to the west. The vacant development site sits on the right-hand side of this photo, surrounded by fencing. The image on the bottom left is Irving and Kilpatrick. This is facing west. On the left-hand side of the image is the Chipotle. This is just outside of the planned development boundary. while the next tan building with the red awnings is the drive-through banking facility previously mentioned to remain unchanged as part of the development. The last image on the bottom right is situated at Milwaukee and Kilpatrick and looks back to the north and west at the proposed development site. The Irving Park and Milwaukee Avenue frontages are designated as pedestrian streets, and as such, the applicant has taken measures to comply with the urban design guidelines in the zoning ordinance that are associated with that designation, including abutting the building facades to the sidewalks, providing active commercial spaces at the ground floor with large storefront windows that engage the street, restricting curb cuts, and providing outdoor public spaces that will be covered in detail later in this presentation. To continue the discussion, I'd like to now turn the presentation over to the design team led by the attorney Jack George for further details on their project.
Thank you very much, Noah. I'd like to have Brett Bunke, who is the architect on the project, now address and go through these different slides on it. Brett?
Good evening. My name is Brett Bunke. I'm Director of Architecture with Ryan Companies, and I am the architect. This view that you're looking at is a rendering at the intersection of Milwaukee and Irving Park. If you could go to the next slide, please. This is a view of the building viewed from Milwaukee Avenue. We utilize two different brick colors to break down the massing and the scale of the building. It's 10 stories. Along the base of the building, we have retail. It's emphasized by large amounts of clear glazing. Above that is our parking level, which will be concealed with spandrel glazing, as well as metal panels. And above that are our senior living residential units. Next slide, please. This is a view standing at the intersection of Kilpatrick and Milwaukee. In the foreground is the one-story retail building, the Aldi Grocer, and in the background you can see the senior living building. Next, please. This is an image about mid-block. This shows our pedestrian plaza, which is mid-block. It's flanked by the one-story retail on the right, and to the left is our 10-story senior living building. Next, please. This is an aerial view showing the massing of our building in context. To the right is our proposed building, 10 stories of senior living and the one-story retail. We're also showing the currently proposed Sears redevelopment as we know it today. Next, please. This is the site plan and ground floor plan of the site. As we stated earlier, there are 3 sub-areas. Sub-area A includes the one-story retail, as well as 67 parking stalls. To the north is sub-area B, which is an existing one-story Bank of America building and surface parking. That will be untouched. Sub-area C contains the senior living building, which has retail at the ground floor, our senior living lobby, including some retail parking. In addition, there are 2 plazas, the mid-block plaza right along Milwaukee Avenue, as well at the intersection of Milwaukee and Irving Park. What's also important to mention here is that the mid-block plaza is connected to Irving Park Road, pedestrian connection that runs along the edge of sub-area C. This is the second floor plan of the parking. Third floor, which includes amenities and assisted living units. This level includes additional amenities with 2 outdoor terraces and our memory care units. Next, please. Level 5, it includes our independent living units and our assisted living units. And finally, floor 6 through 10, which are assisted living units and independent units. Section through our building. So our total unit count, 258. Retail over 18,000 square feet, and our total parking count. Next slide, please. This is the overall roof plan. This slide highlights the 3 outdoor amenity spaces that we have. One at the intersection, which is called the Prow Terrace on the 4th floor. Below that is the Memory Care Terrace. And to the right is an additional courtyard terrace that includes landscaping and hardscaping. Next slide, please. These are the elevations of both the 1-story building and the 10-story. On this slide, the 1-story retail is highlighted by masonry, brick veneer, cast stone trim, and metal panels at the corners of the building. These images along sub-area A of the north and east elevation utilizes fiber cement panel, metal coping, and a brick base. All the retail store frontages will be clear glazing aluminum storefront. Next, please. This is the elevation along Milwaukee Avenue. As you can see along the base of the building, we have an extensive use of storefront with clear glazing for the retail tenants. Next, please. Similar to Milwaukee Avenue, this is the Irving Park Road elevation. Next, please. The northwest elevation, which is at the intersection of Milwaukee and Irving Park. And the east elevation facing the surface parking lot of the 1-story retail. And these are diagrams showing in detail the exterior wall system. We're using 2 colors of brick accented by cast stone that produces, creates a depth and shadow within the large expanses of elevations that we have both along Milwaukee and Irving Park Road. At the base of the building, as I stated earlier, we have large expanses of aluminum storefront with a stone base. Next slide, please. The image on the left is at the prow, which contains Juliet balconies that overlook the intersection and the courtyard below. The image on the right is a blow-up elevation and section of the cladding of the parking garage on the first 2 floors. And this is our transportation, traffic, and parking diagram. I want to reiterate that because of the P Street designation, we have no curb cuts along Irving Park Road or Milwaukee Avenue. Most of the traffic will be coming in onto Kilpatrick and entering to the site from the east. I'd like to point out that CDOT recommended that we modify the existing signal for the left-hand turn from Kilpatrick to westbound traffic on Irving Park Road. Also, to the south of Kilpatrick, CDOT recommended curb improvements to calm traffic patterns coming down Kilpatrick and entering the site. We also have proposed curb improvements and a crosswalk at our mid-block plaza across from our public plaza. And we also have a loading dock for both inside the building for the senior living building and at the Aldi grocery store. And we'll be providing a divvy station along Kilpatrick Avenue. This is our pedestrian connectivity. The dashed magenta line is the existing sidewalk that goes around the perimeter of the block. As I stated earlier, we're providing this new mid-block plaza, and it connects to the Irving Park Road to the north. Next, please. This is the overall landscape plan. We're providing trees along both Milwaukee Avenue and Irving Park and Kilpatrick. The image on the left is an enlarged plan of that corner plaza that will be hardscaped in 2 colors of pavers, along with bollards for pedestrian safety and movable planters. The image to the right is an enlarged plan of the mid-block plaza. Similar to the corner plaza, it'll utilize 2 colors of pavers, as well as include some landscaping and some seating areas. Next, please. I'll turn it over to, I'm sorry. This is our sustainability matrix. We've highlighted in green the 100 points that we intend to achieve. So a wide array of strategies addressing stormwater reduction, landscaping initiatives, water conservation, energy efficiency, and transportation. I'd like to turn it back over to our attorney, Jack George.
Yes, thank you. This is Jack George, and I'm the attorney for the developer. This next slide, please, if you could just turn to the next slide. This is just an affordable housing summary. If you look in the box there to the right, it shows that there are a total of 114 independent living units, and so that's 10% of that. There'll be 11 units. Those 11 units will be on site. It's a little bit different. This slide explains a little bit about the independent living and how it's worked. And not only will be providing for the 11 units, but they're reserved for people who have earning up to 60% of area median income. And that rent includes provides a voucher that equates to 1 meal per day. It also includes utilities and maintenance. The next slide, please. This is our slide that deals with MBE and WBE. The Ryan Company and the developer of this property is committed to that. This diagram and this slide here goes through some of the companies that we've already contracted to and talked to already, as well as some of the MBE companies that have been hired. Next slide, please. The last slide here that I will be talking about is the project facts and community benefits. The cost of this is $130 million. The construction jobs are 650 jobs. Permanent jobs are 200. The 20-year real estate tax contribution will be about $41 million. The developer here is also providing for a community fee waiver for veterans for the first year. There would be no fee to gain entry into the development. They're also providing a SURE scholarship fund, a one-time commitment of $100,000, and then every year there will be 2 internships each year. They've also, one of the benefits too is the amount of public space in plazas and pedestrian connections, and there is no TIF funding at all connected with this. I would like to say, on behalf of the developer, to thank the alderman on this project, James Gardner, who has given so much time and effort to this project since we've been involved in it, and also the Department of Planning and Development. We're very proud of this development, and we would ask again for your favorable vote on this project. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. I think, Noah, were you going to?
Yep, sorry about that, was muted. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the materials that were submitted by the applicant, and we have concluded that this proposed development is appropriate on the subject site for the following reasons. As indicated in the presentation, the proposed development is compliant and consistent with the guiding principles listed in the Six Corners Economic Development Master Plan adopted by this Plan Commission in 2016, I think it was. The proposed plan development promotes economically beneficial development patterns that are compatible with the character of the existing neighborhood. The project, as presented, promotes transit, pedestrian, and bicycle use. It ensures that there's accessibility to the site for people with disabilities, and it minimizes conflicts with existing traffic patterns in the vicinity. As mentioned, the site is in close proximity to public transit in various forms, 3 different CTA lines, which in turn then provide service to 2 different Blue Line stations and to Metro train service. All sides and areas of this building that are visible to the public are treated with materials, finishes, and architectural details that are considered to be of high quality and appropriate for use on primary public right-of-way facing facades. And lastly, the copies of the application were submitted and circulated to other city departments and agencies, and we have received no comments which have remained unaddressed by the team here today. So please refer to my staff report for further details regarding this project and the plans identified here today. But based on the foregoing, it's a recommendation of the zoning administrator of the Department of Planning and Development that this application to amend Plan Development number 1321 be approved and forwarded to the City Council Committee on Zoning Landmarks and Building Standards as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Gardner, you're unmuted and you can make a statement if you'd like.
Sure. I just wanted to begin by saying how grateful and thankful I am to Clark Street, to Peter Eisenberg, and Ryan Companies, Dan Walsh, for their patience and their diligence during this process, and for adapting the original plan to better accommodate the needs and wants of our community. Some changes that have been made that we have mentioned was the significance of having 11 affordable units on site. This gives many seniors who already live in our community and our city an opportunity to live in an upscale senior living facility that otherwise they would have no opportunity to live in. A senior who makes anywhere less than approximately $42,000 a year would have an opportunity now to get in for a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to live in this facility. Also, by increasing the independent living units and decreasing the assisted living units, we now give local businesses that are obviously hurting during this pandemic a better chance of being successful by having residents that will have the ability to cross the busy intersections to feed their businesses. Also, by having a waiver for veterans who have served in our armed forces for the first year also is very important due to the fact that the initial cost is somewhere around $4,000. And then also, lastly, we're having a $100,000 scholarship to one Shares high school student, which we all can understand how significant that is, especially for students in our public schools who are having a tremendous challenge of meeting the cost of rising college tuition. I wanted to mention, by having another grocer near Six Corners, we believe we can fulfill the needs of the growing family population in our community. Last but not least, I would like to acknowledge and recognize the professionalism of attorney Jack George. His efforts were instrumental in cementing the current agreement. Also, I want to thank the Planning and Development Department, NOAA, Commissioner Cox, Commissioner Gorski, and I simply ask for a favorable vote by the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Alderman. Commissioner Villegas, followed by Commissioner Searle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to congratulate my colleague, Alderman Gardner, on this project. My ward is just a little to the west of here. I can tell you that bringing this type of project to the area was much needed. The project looks very nice. It looks very fitting for the area. And I want to congratulate you, Jim, for your tenacity during your first year in bringing this project over the finish line. I know that it's been vacant for quite some time, but I appreciate your hard work on this. And as a veteran, I appreciate also the fact that the 1 year waiver for veterans. As relates to the development team, the Ryan brothers, or Ryan Company rather, I am not too familiar with them if they perform a lot of work within the public space. But as it relates to the 26 and 6 on minority women business enterprise, I want to make sure that as they're working on this project, or even prior to working on this project, that they're reaching out to all the communities. This is a nice project, and I want to make sure that all communities are participating on these types of projects. So I know that it's codified in the PD, but I want to make sure that the Ryan Company makes every effort to reach out to all parts of the city. And then with the workforce, I want to make sure that there's some type of way for constituents throughout the city of Chicago to find out how to get these types of jobs. So if someone from the development team or if Mr. George could speak to ways that folks that would be interested in participating on this project or working on this project, how do you envision that? How do you envision that coming to fruition?
Mr. George, did you want to address that?
Team. This is something, the Ryan Company has an exemplary background in doing MBE and WBE work. They have someone assigned in the company that does exactly that. It works with MBE and WBE companies and try to make sure that they have full notices of what the work is going to be and given the opportunity to attend job fairs and work with them. Alderman, as you've indicated before on another project, we would again, on behalf of this developer, be glad to meet with your organization and your group of people to make sure that they're aware of the opportunities. And so we will continue to reach out as we always do. And our team and the Ryan Company has that record and they will do it here in this particular case.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And then the reason why, what prompted that question, Mr. George, is that it states there the company's contacted to date. And I see Business Leadership Council, Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council, Latin American Chamber of Commerce. And those are one out of the three actually has members that deal within the construction industry. I would just recommend that when this developer is looking for, or the contractor is looking for subs or partners, that they may consider looking at trade associations that deal within the construction industry specifically.
We'll be glad to do that. We'll be glad to do that, Alderman.
Thank you.
George again.
Thank you, George. Jack. And then again, I just wanted to congratulate Jim one more time. So, Madam Chair, that's it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Searle, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say we've seen a lot of senior housing, and this is probably one of the best that we've seen in a long time. And it's a really nice project. So I'm completely on board with voting yes for this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cox, followed by Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, I too just want to congratulate the Alderman Gardner on this project. I know that he inherited it from his predecessor, and it's had its bit of controversy as the community has tried to accept higher density to kind of reestablish Six Corners as its downtown. I think, the mix of independent living for seniors, the idea of a grocery store on the site and retail on the ground floor, and something that really is going to establish Six Corners as really the downtown of this community. I'm really, really pleased that it leaves me a little bit scratching my head what the controversy was all about. I mean, it was a 10-story building as proposed, and it's a 10-story building now at the end. I do think that the alderman's tenacity in asking for more has led to those affordable housing units being placed on site, proving that you can mix incomes of multiple incomes in the same building. I think that was well worth the fight to get the development team to accept that. And I think architecturally, it's a very, very handsome building. And so I'm pleased. I wish it hadn't been so difficult to get to this point, but nevertheless, I'm pleased at the outcome. Congratulate the development team, the architects, the aldermen, and certainly the planning staff as well. I'm just thrilled. I will say there's one slight thing that I noticed in the site plan. The building and its parking lot occupies really 75% of the block, and they are making sidewalk public improvements to their 75%. There's another 25% of the block, which is, I guess, some existing buildings there. And I see no reason why the trees have to stop and the sidewalks repair has to stop. And I would just encourage the development team to extend the public realm around the entire perimeter of the site. So the trees don't stop where the project stops. The trees represent a continuum of the public realm. That's my only observation, and I hope it can be incorporated into the future site plan.
Commissioner Burnett, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I also like to take the opportunity to commend my colleague, Jim. Very proud of what you've been able to do here. This is a very outstanding building. It's very beautiful. Appreciate how you're taking care of the senior citizens and the veterans, Jim. I think this is great. It's good that you stood up and did what you felt was right instead of what was popular. That's great, man, and I can see other great things coming your way. Mr. George, you know, if you ever need some minority contractors, I can hook you up any day of the week, like we do with all your other clients all the time, okay? So
We understand.
just let me know.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Do I have a motion on the proposed amendment to the residential business plan development number 1321 to re-subdivide the property into 3 sub-areas with sub-area A and C to receive?
So moved by Commissioner Shaw.
Seconded by Commissioner Lyons.
Okay, I actually didn't finish reading it, but do I need to read it into the record? My hat's off to all of you who have young children at home, and we realize we're cutting into family time here too. Can someone, staff, do I need to read this whole thing?
Chairman, you should read the full, I'm sorry, I lost you for a second, so go ahead and please read the
you
entire.
lost me because there was talking over, and I'm presuming it's because some folks are dealing with, having kids at home.
Right. Yes, you have to read the full motion. I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. Well, I stopped for a moment because I heard the,
yeah.
And I wasn't sure what was going on, so I wanted to double check, make sure someone wasn't talking to me. All right, so I'm just going to start all over again very quickly. Do I have a motion on proposed amendment to residential business plan development number 1321 to re-subdivide the property? Is it time for the party? Into 3 sub-areas with sub-area A and C to receive new development, while sub-area B is to remain unchanged as currently developed. Sub-area A is to be developed with a 10-story building containing retail and commercial uses on the ground floor and 114 independent living units, 144 assisted living and memory care units on the floors above. Sub-area C will be developed with a 1-story commercial building. The planned development as a whole will include 216 accessory vehicular parking stalls, finding that it meets the requirements for approval. I have a motion from Commissioner Shaw. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Lyons had given the second.
Oh, Commissioner Lyons, thank you so much. Second. All right. Now, for the chocolate, here comes the roll call vote. Commissioner Biaggi.
Yes, I'll take chocolate.
All right. Commissioner Brumfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordova is a yes. Commissioner Cox.
An enthusiastic yes.
Commissioner Flores.
Yes.
Commissioner Garza. He was here for most of the day. All right. Commissioner Kelly.
Yes.
Commissioner Lyons.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Commissioner Novata. He's gone. Sorry. Commissioner Searle was a proxy yes. She just left. And then Commissioner Villegas.
Yes.
It looks like Tony was a proxy yes also. I think that's correct right now. Commissioner, and then Commissioner Wagasbuck.
Yep.
I think you have to call me Commissioner.
Oh,
So
gosh,
Commissioner Shaw, yes.
All right, Commissioner. The problem is that this, like, number 10 is way at the end of the list of where the names are. So that's why I'm going back and forth here. Okay, the motion passes. Congratulations to everybody involved.
Thank you so much.
This does conclude the public hearing portion of our agenda. There will be no chairman's update today, except to thank, something like this goes really smoothly because of the amount of work that goes on beforehand and behind the scenes. So I want to really acknowledge Noah Zafranik, who just has done and does such a tremendous job. And then secondly, want to also thank the tech support. I think the value of the tech support has been tremendous. And I'm about to call for a motion, but I see that Commissioner Cox has just raised his hand.
Yes, I think we would be remiss if we didn't thank you for your stamina. I think this must be the longest planning commission meeting in history. It certainly required a focus that I think people don't understand just how challenging it is for a chair to move work like this forward. I think the staff is going to help us in the future as we get accustomed to this new format, both the virtual format, but also all of the different presenters that we have. I think we can tighten it up and make it a little easier. There's been a lot of communication that's been going back and forth so that we can help the presenters present their work in the best light. But again, I commend you for it's an amazing feat. So thank you for guiding us through this very, very significant meeting. So with
Thank you,
that,
Commissioner Cox. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. A walk will definitely be due after this. All right, so do I have a motion for adjournment?
so moved.
Commissioner Cox moves. Second.
Collective move.
Yeah, right. And does anybody object? The motion carries. We are adjourned. Let me double check the time. We are adjourned at 6:40 p.m. So great. Thank you, everybody. We look forward to when we can do this again in person. I suspect, however, that it's highly likely that our next meeting will be virtual again. So everyone stay safe. And thanks again to our essential workers and to our various leadership that are working so hard to keep us safe. Thank you so much.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank all of you. Appreciate your cooperation.